Hi there everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we'll be talking through a field which is available to us on the customer and vendor card called application method. Okay, so what this field essentially does is it controls how transactions are applied to each other when they're posted against a customer or vendor. Okay, so let me just show you on the customer and vendor card very quickly. So if I jump into my customers, let's go into a Datum Corporation. And if I come down, once that catches up to the application method, this is the field that we're focusing on. So where the application method is set to manual, it basically means that we need to choose the transactions that are applied to each other. Okay, so you post an invoice, you post a payment, you need to choose which invoices are applied to which payments or credit memos, whichever types of transactions. Okay. On the other hand, if you choose apply to oldest here, what BC will do is it will automatically choose the transactions to apply to. It will apply to the oldest. So you have an invoice, you have a payment, it will automatically apply those to each other when you're posting the transaction. Okay, so we will run through and see how that works in a second, but let me just show you before we do that the field is also available to us on the vendor ledger. Okay, so if I go into Vendor Fabricam Incorporated here, and again, if I come down to the Payments tab, we can see application method is available to us there, and we can make the same selections. Okay, works in the same way. So let's jump back into the customers here, and on the customers list, I've set up two customers here that we can use for this demo. So we've got the manual customer and the apply to oldest customer. Now, if I jump into the manual customer, I'll just show you the setup on here very quickly. So I've done very basic configuration against this customer, but key thing for this video is the application method is set to manual. Okay, so if I go ahead on my manual customer and raise a new sales invoice, and once that sales invoice pops up, I will just put a line on there. And I'll put a quantity, and I'll put a unit price. And I'll give that invoice a post. Let's say yes. And we won't open the posted invoice. And back here on the customer card, let's go and post a cash receipt. So we're going to pay the invoice that we've just posted. So let's say document type payment, customer, manual customer, minus 120, and we'll post that. Okay, so now against my manual customer, I have an invoice and a payment. So if I go to my customer ledger entries, I should see two transactions on there. There's the invoice, there's the payment. Okay. And key thing on this one is that if I scroll to the right here, look, we've got the remaining amount of my invoice is set to 120. Okay, so it's the full amount of the invoice, and the open tick box is still checked. So these entries are not applied to each other, okay, because it's the manual application method. What I need to do is click the assist edit and go apply entries. And if I go set applies to ID and post application, I'll just rush through this. It's not really that relevant, but I just want to show you that I need to manually apply this transaction. Okay, so remaining amount is now 0, and the open checkbox is unpopulated. So next, what we'll do is we'll go through to the apply to oldest customer. We'll do the same thing, and we'll just observe the behavior in that particular scenario. Okay, so just to show you, before we process transactions against this customer, I'm now on my apply to oldest customer, and that should be set to apply to oldest. Okay, so application method is set to apply to oldest on this customer. So let's go through and do the same thing that we did on our other customer. I'll process a new document, a sales invoice, and once that catches up, I'll just go through and add a line. And I will add a quantity. Sorry, let's just change those to 1 and 100, and let's post. Okay, so we have our invoice, and what we're going to do is go ahead and pay that invoice. So let's go post cash receipts, and just the same as we did before for the manual customer, this time for the apply to oldest customer, let's go ahead and process a payment. So let's say post, and yes. Okay, so journal lines were successfully posted. Now let's go back to my customer card, and let's go customer and ledger entries, and we should have 2 lines in here. So 2 transactions, one for the payment, one for the invoice. But key difference on this one is, look, when I scroll to the right, the remaining amount LCY are 0, and the open checkbox is unpopulated. So basically, we haven't had to do the apply entries that we did with the manual customer. And if I go to applied entries, key thing here, like guys, I'm clicking from the payment line. Okay, so G02015 is my payment reference number. If I go to applied entries, I can see here that payment G02015 is applied to invoice 103233. Okay, so that application has automatically happened because we had the application method. If I step back to apply to oldest. Now, we did it here for an invoice and a payment, but the same principle applies if it's an invoice and a credit, a payment, a refund, whatever it might be. It's always going to try and make that application when you do the posting. And I guess sort of scenarios in which you can use this, it depends, you know, what type of business you are, what type of transactions you have with your customers, just depends, but I figured it might be something useful that you guys might want to see. So that's everything I wanted to show you guys. Thanks very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.